in Munich at the Aerospace Tech Week event, and I'm delighted to be joined by a very sort of special small company that's here this week. Small but potentially very big, and it's an award-winning company. So Iomide is joining me. He's the founder of a company called Kquika. Okay, and Kquika yesterday was one of the winners of the awards, and Kquika was named AI Visionary 2025. AI, obviously, artificial intelligence. So, welcome to ABNcast. Thanks for joining us. Just give us a story of the founding of the company, and how you got to where you've got to today.
Well, thank you so much, Rob. It's a delight to be here this morning. In November 2021, my brother and I co-founded Kquika. I'm actually the COO, and my brother is the CEO. So, okay. How Kquika came about was my brother was in grad school at that point in time, Cornell, and he was doing a lot of predictive analysis, but he was working in the medical field.
Okay.
And I think one day my brothers and I are pretty much very close, so we would have FaceTime calls every day. I have a background in mechanical engineering, robotics, and one day I think my brother just called me and he was saying, "Hey, can we get the knowledge of the predictive analysis that I have in this area, combined into some of the mechanical experience that you have?"
Yeah.
And that was pretty much the story behind that. And we had a bunch of ideas in the beginning, but we just started thinking about very relatable use cases, and the fact that air travel is one that we travel a lot.
Yeah.
Because we don't live with our parents, and most times we have to travel back and or things like that, and we've had a lot of travel delays because of just technical issues.
Right. Okay.
So he brought the idea, hey, let's try to create something using the predictive analysis experience I have to see if we can get a predictive maintenance suite ready for the aerospace industry.
Right. Okay. So it came from. So it's really interesting. Okay. So the aviation side of it was more from a consumer point of view.
Yeah.
The technical thing was more from a medical side of things.
Yeah.
And that just came together with your mechanical engineering. So there's sort of three elements that came together.
Yeah.
Brought you to where you were. So what was it about what your brother was doing in medical predictive that was so in parallel or aligned with what you can apply in aviation? Is it just the principles are the same?
Yeah, so pretty much we knew at that point in time that we needed to get obviously inside information, like wanted to get some experience in the industry as well.
Yeah.
And with the team that we've currently aligned, that we've currently assembled together, we have over 50 years of experience. It combined 50 years of experience in the aviation industry. So we're able to use so we have advisors in the aviation industry right now that they have tons and tons of years of experience.
Yeah, which you don't. So
so we're able to leverage that knowledge and expertise that they have.
Yeah.
We're able to get insights into what the issues that those things that we can apply into the technical knowledge that we have.
Yeah.
And we're able to bring all of that together and produce a solution.
So sometimes these experts come in and they go, "Look, we like this, great idea, but it's been tried a million times before. It never works. Sorry to sort of burst your bubble." That's obviously not what they've said to you in this case, because you are here, you are growing this business, and you're also winning awards. So what was these guys' reaction when you said to them that we want to do this? Was it an immediate, yeah, look, you're onto something here. This is really necessary for an industry that's struggling for this?
And that's a very important question, because just thinking about my co-founder, my brother and I, our background coming from, Nigeria, and so it's nothing in life has been a straight yes. So we had to obviously always have to, receive a no and say, hey, we're going to persist in this.
Yeah.
Basically, our story is built on persistence, on never giving up, and never taking no for an answer. So obviously, at the beginning, there was, all right, this cannot be done this way, or that cannot be done that way.
Yeah.
Or we had a vision from the beginning that we knew we wanted to stick to.
Yeah.
And we're still sticking to this vision this day. And this vision is obviously what has, brought us here.
Yeah.
And that vision is what is going to continue to take us forward. And this industry has a high barrier of entry, and there was an initial pushback at the beginning that, hey, we don't think things are going to work this way.
Yeah.
There are always going to be problems.
Yeah.
But so those who win, champions always find a solution to problems. And, those problems that we initially had issues with, or that our advisors that initially had issues with, people that had experience in this industry had issues with, we had to find answers to those problems.
Yeah.
And that's what has brought us here.
Do you mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 27.
27, okay. So still young guys, but not taking no for an answer. That's tough, yeah? That's can be difficult in a big industry like this.
Well, it takes a lot of faith, a lot of belief, a lot of grit, a lot of hard work, a lot of perseverance. And I can say all the big words right now, for really, those are the things that have brought us here. And we've heard our backs against the wall.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's anything that's worth building, something has to give. And this is what's giving. So,
you're based in New York.
Yeah.
So still Nigeria, family in Nigeria, but you and your brother are based in New York. How many people in the business?
So actually, my family lives in the United States right now.
Okay.
So we moved from Nigeria to the United States. But the company is based in New York. My brother and I work in New York. We have a flex team of 9 people right now.
Okay.
And obviously, you see over there, Oliver is one of our advisors.
Yeah.
I think you met Gerard yesterday. Gerard is also one of our advisors. So we have a flex team of 9 right now. And this team is only going to continue to grow. I'm privileged every day to work with the most incredible and the most talented people in the world. And, just the drive that everyone on the team has is what has brought us here, and that drive is what has been content.
Where are you on your story? So you're in the startup area, so you're a startup still. Are you seed funded? Are you working towards first round? Where are you at?
So yeah, we're working towards raising some funds right now.
Yeah.
We're trying to raise our seed round of about $3 million.
Okay.
So we're going to see how that goes. And we're also obviously right now there's some pilot programs,
right?
And trying to get more clients in the door.
So you've got clients piloting what you've built the technology. So the technology itself, it's ready to obviously go into a pilot situation. So it's there. It's real.
I mean, I want something that's not ready.
Of course.
So
yeah. Explain what does it do? Why is this necessary? What gap in the market have you identified? So what are you doing?
So the aviation industry right now is riddled with reactive maintenance.
Yeah.
So that means we're waiting for things to break down before anything is done about it, and there's a lot of inefficiencies surrounding that.
Yeah.
First of all, there's a lot of money that's been lost. The predictive maintenance industry alone, as a subsector of the aviation industry, is an 80 billion plus industry.
Yeah.
So now you think about how many billions of dollars are being lost to unscheduled maintenance costs. Now someone has to do something about that. So if we can only take about 20-30% of this industry, of the market size of this industry, that's still a lot of money that we can save businesses.
Yeah.
So our end goal is to ensure that commercial airlines, governments are able to keep their planes flying, and that's pretty much what we want to do.
Yeah. And you were saying to me yesterday, well, also it's your independence that is the difference. Yeah.
Yes.
Not part of a bigger group.
Yeah.
So why is that important?
So you think about other solutions like Skywise. Skywise only works for Airbus aircraft.
Yeah.
You think about Aviata only works for Lufthansa. But the good thing about what we do is we are agnostic.
Yeah.
So we don't care what kind of aircraft you have. I mean, we care, but we're saying, hey, you don't have to be dependent on just one system. So you can have aircraft of multiple types.
Yeah.
And our solution can work with all the kind of aircraft that you got. And that's what really makes us special in this industry.
And you were made AI visionary, so AI is the key element here. AI requires a lot of data, so without a lot of data, you can't really do AI, are you? So because you're agnostic, you can pull in data from absolutely every part of the industry as well. And that's an advantage.
That's an advantage. Because obviously, where we are right now, we're only going to keep improving. Right now, we start at a 95% accuracy. Our models are only going to keep improving, with models that I will keep getting in. So definitely, just as you mentioned, it's an advantage for us.
Yeah. And just a word on AI in general. There's a lot of talk this week about AI because it's the buzzword. Where do you think the aviation sector is in embracing AI and actually extracting the value in reality about what AI can do? Or are we at the very start of really understanding the value of AI?
Well, in this industry, things are slow to change, understandably so. And I think right now, because of how a lot of businesses are saying the capabilities of AI, so there's already a slow embrace to what AI can do in this industry.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hurdles to still go through before AI can be fully appreciated, before the powers of AI can be fully appreciated in this industry. But I think we're on the right track, and it's going to take individuals like us, doing what we're doing right now, to continue to push that discussion going.
I was going to say, is that slowness of adoption something that a startup and is it that startups in general can help the industry with? Because if it's left to the industry and the existing players, there will be a slow creep, but actually startups can just accelerate that a little bit. Is that that feel at the role you might play in this?
Yeah. And if you look at all these startups that are here, a lot of these startups that are here this week are dependent on AI for things that they do.
Yeah.
So startups are obviously and definitely going to push that discussion, and we have a big role to play. We're going to try as much as possible, do our very best to ensure that we fill the gap that existing big players in the industry don't really want to to take on. So I think that's where we are right now.
It's been great to chat. Thanks for joining us on ABNcast. It's great to see young entrepreneurs, especially from a diverse background, making a difference in aviation. You can see around here that it's happening, isn't it? It's there, and there'll be more of it, I'm sure, in the future. So all power to you. Thanks very much for joining us.
All right, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the for the opportunity to So
no worries.
Cheers. Sorry. Cheers.
Okay, so we're on day 2 of Aerospace Tech Week in Munich, and I'm now joined by Nicola Bates, who's the managing director of Aerospace Xcelerated, which is a startup accelerator set up by Boeing but separate to Boeing. She's here with some of their portfolio members who are exhibiting just over to the right here of us today. Welcome, Nicola. Thanks for joining us on ABNcast. Just start off by telling you about your presence here this week. So you've got five what do you call them, portfolio members. Which ones are here this week, and what are they talking about?
Sure. So as Aerospace Xcelerated, we like to support our portfolio companies by taking them around the world with us and ensuring that we're doing everything we can to really help drive revenue. I think that's the most important thing that we can do as an investor in these early stage companies. So we've got, as you said, 5 companies with us this week. We've got Pliable, we've got AR Engineering, we have Productive Machines, we have Seaspan AI and Aerosense.
Okay.
So we're also, interestingly, that these companies are from all across the world, so we have the UAE represented, we have the UK represented, we have the US represented. So I think that in and of itself shows you that, the portfolio actually work together as a group. Although they're based across 14 different countries, they really do work as a collective, which is awesome.
Do they share experience then by being part of the group? Okay.
They not only they share experience, they share customers, which is the most important thing, and they make introductions for each other. And because we regularly bring them together to shows like this, it means that they get to know each other, get to know each other's strengths, the sort of customer they're looking for. So they actually act as kind of scouts for each other. So whilst they might be based in the UK, they've got 13 other countries. They've got, friends there also help and drive.
So a real actually community sense.
It really is a really community effort.
So they're based globally. So you've got that kind of the regional global side of it, but they're all doing different things as well. So I think you said one had AI in the name. So I can guess they're doing AI. But what sort of areas? Is it anything? I mean, are you looking for startups in all areas, really, of aviation?
Yeah, so what we're looking, I think for us, really, I think everyone imagines that what we're looking for is things that go on an airplane, and that's not necessarily the limit of it. So we've got companies from HR-related technologies using AR and VR technologies into human resources, right the way through to we've got a company that is growing aviation or sustainable aviation fuel in a lab in London called Kquika, which is super exciting, through to companies like we have here today, who are helping with the manufacturing process, helping us be more efficient in that manufacturing process. And, I think that what you see then is what we're really looking for is the companies that we feel that we can influence the future of. So do we have something in our, in our capability that can really help these companies. So I think that's for us when we're selecting companies, we're looking for those that can have real impact on the industry, and for people that we really feel we can make a difference to.
And you've actually, the accelerator scheme that invests in them, so there's money there on the table, so there's skin in the game. Do you invest over a certain period? How does it work? How do they get in the first place, and what's their journey through the process?
Yeah, so there's usually a selection process, and it varies. So sometimes we do a very big open call around a thematic area, and we scout for companies all across the world, and we just bring forward the absolute best, best of the best from across the world into the program. As soon as they start the program, we write the check. It's that simple. It's very quick that happens. But then that's really only the start of the journey. Then the journey is, how do we help them raise more money? Because having a corporate investor is one thing, but having a financial investor is significantly better, because that says this company's going to make money.
Your check will get them so far, but it's not everything. They need to raise good money.
Exactly. And then what we're doing is helping them actually find where they fit in the aerospace ecosystem. And, when I say this a lot, sometimes the answer is they don't.
Okay.
And they realize that they absolutely should not waste any more time trying to fight their way into aerospace. They should go and make money where they can make money easier. And for us, that's a win, because they've not wasted all that time. We're a very founder-focused organization. So we're not only looking after the founders for what they're doing today, because we know that, success rates are low for startups. So what we're thinking about is, how do we protect that founder and ensure that he or she has the ability to go again if it doesn't go the right way. So it's about exposing them, bringing them onto the inside, from a large prime perspective, but also putting them in front of our tier 1 and 2 supply chain. And that's really important to us, that we have a very open and neutral platform. We share all of the data with our program partners. So there's no secrets that are kept here as, Boeing proprietary information or anything like that. We're very open with, here's what we're doing with the portfolio, here's why we're interested in them, this is what's happening, because then it provides that confidence and understanding for other players to come forward and take that risk with us.
And although this is a Boeing initiative, like you say, it's agnostic really. You said on stage earlier, if needs be, I'll pass these guys on to Airbus, because I feel that's the best place for them, and Boeing is not going to be possessing with it.
So Boeing don't put any restrictions on these companies, and that was one of the things that we, ethically from the start we started out with. We do not want to tie these companies down, because although we invest, we would never allow our shareholding to go over 25%. So we always ensure that we're staying, where we're not influencing the direction of the company. That's not our job. And, there is a responsibility as one of the largest aerospace and defense company in the world. It's incumbent on us to bring more innovators in. If we're not inspiring more people to come into the industry and build cool, great new technology for us, then who's going to do that? So that's why it's really important that we run this very open and neutral platform. We always want to work with not just other large organizations in aerospace, but those outside of aerospace as well, because there's so much synergy, and that's what we've seen here today. A lot of these companies have already had traction in automotive, in oil and gas, in other large enterprise organizations. How do we take the benefit of that and bring that to aerospace and really help drive the future?
Just spoke to one of the award winners from yesterday, in disruptive in AI. An idea that came out of actually pharmaceutical combined with engineering, and suddenly it's an aviation. So, these things have parallels and applications all over the place, not just in aviation necessarily. Talking about the people, you talk about bringing in new people. There's a lot of talk this week about the industry's, the skills issue in the industry, an aging demographic, and certainly in certain areas, particularly, say, maintenance and repair. How positive does it make you feel when you see the demographic of some of these startups? You can see it's pretty diverse. It's more diverse than maybe the industry itself as on the whole. But does it give you sort of confidence for the future that this is where the future is, and that is coming through, and the industry will just embrace that?
Yeah, Yeah, well, I think that it does it yes and no in the sense that I look at it and go, there's just not enough of them.
Okay.
We just
The ones that are there, it's good, but you need more volume.
We need more, and that, and I think I think that's what's really important, and especially as we're coming to this place where we all know that at some point in the hopefully not too distant future, either Boeing or Airbus are going to go first and say we're building the next aircraft.
Yeah.
And when that happens, that's going to be that's the real opportunity for there to be fundamental transformational change for the whole of the industry to really think about the future of aerospace. And when I think back to pre-pandemic, all of the vision that we had about what the future of aerospace would look like, we would have flying taxis everywhere, we would have these cargo air vehicles, and this amazing future that we were building, a new industry, really.
Yeah.
And we kind of lost the momentum with that.
Okay.
The pandemic happened, our supply chain was then in crisis, we're still rebuilding, we're not back to, pre-pandemic production levels. So there's a lot still to fix, and I think that I don't think that anyone could have really predicted how heavily hit we would have been in that sense. Yeah. And the impact of losing, through the pandemic, we lost a lot of skills as a result of that because workforces around the world have changed dramatically.
They weren't needed, were they? The fleets are grounded.
They weren't needed, but I think people also had a different perspective when we started to come back. And they chose to maybe leave the industry a lot, as you said, the aging population, a lot of people chose to retire.
Yes.
So we lost a lot of skills that wouldn't have happened to the same extent otherwise.
Do you think the industry is doing enough to promote itself as an industry for the younger innovator? I mean, we're in competition with all sorts of different sectors. Some look a bit more exciting, maybe a bit more sustainable. That's maybe a key issue, I would have thought, amongst that generation. Or is it doing enough to go out there and say, actually, come on, think about aviation, it's a great place?
So I think that we've we've a little bit lost that, that aspirational, inspirational, excitement that comes with this sector. I think that we have lost that a little bit. There's a lot of initiatives, companies are still doing this, but it's like, where do you prioritize right now? Do you prioritize fixing the supply chain? Do you prioritize, it's very difficult because, again, there are only so many of us to go around in the industry. So it's, what do we do first? So I think, no, we're not doing enough. But at the same time, it's not a difficult industry to get excited about. And when you start to see some of the things that we can do, when we do actually get everything back on track.
One of the hard things, and we'll finish on this because time's running out, but one of the hard things about getting into the industry for those startups you're talking about, and you just talked about it a bit on stage a minute ago, is the barriers to entry, the kind of the rules and regulations around. It can look daunting. You can end up going, well, actually, this is far too difficult. Is the industry doing enough to sort of mitigate that? And I guess people like you are trying to help with that kind of thing, so that the startups can just focus on what they need to do and not have a sort of an army of legal regulators and other specialists they don't really need in the business.
Well, I think that's where the collaboration is really important, and both for us and Airbus, take that very seriously about not only how do we ensure that those standards are being maintained, but also how do we help bring others through. And I think the regulators, we see this, we work a lot with regulators and supporting them because they're doing a huge amount of work as well, trying to understand startups and these new ideas that they're bringing. How does that fit? But it is a huge system, and that's the problem. You can't change one thing without that impacting something else.
Yeah.
So it is slow. It's slower than we would all like, but it is for good reason.
Yeah. Look, well, our time is up, but I'm sure we'll meet again at shows like this, and we really look forward to seeing what these companies do and how they do, break into the industry, change things maybe, and then let's see how it goes.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Okay, so joining us on ABNcast now is Sophie Scannell. She is the Director of Delivery at PhysicsX, which is a software company.
It is, Lee, yes, an engineering software company. And you're just across the road there on your stand. Just tell us a bit about PhysicsX, what you do. I know you're not an aviation specialist, but you're here obviously to show your wares in the aviation sector. We're here because a lot of our customers are aviation manufacturers, or they're people who supply into that sort of world. And so PhysicsX as a software company is designed to change the way people do simulation. Okay. It could be simulation for design, or it could be simulation for digital twins, it could be simulation for virtual sensing, all of which obviously have aviation applications and aerospace applications. But it allows people to take their simulation data, which is incredibly accurate but long-running models,
train machine learning models that are also incredibly accurate, but can run in maybe a second or maybe even faster, and then use those for some particular use case.
Okay.
So you might be, optimizing the shape of a wing. You might be trying to create a new heat exchanger somewhere on the plane.
Okay.
You might be looking at a digital twin of something and saying, how would I operate this most efficiently? Because it is designed, it's not going to change.
Yeah.
But obviously environmental conditions on the day are different.
Okay. So the kind of people you're talking to here this week come to you at the point at which they're scoping out the design for something, working out how it would work in reality, but not actually obviously doing it in reality, using technology and software to assist with that.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think about it for design of new products.
Yeah.
They want something a little bit differently. They've understood that the last time they designed it, they did some experiments, did simulation, did design of experiments, and looked at a whole bunch of different configurations, but they didn't look at a million configurations because obviously you couldn't wait for a million simulations to run.
No.
So we have some customers that will sit at that sort of product development bit of the world. We have a lot of people that think about manufacturing.
Okay.
Because you're obviously trying to cast it or machine it or in some cases print it.
Yeah.
That will change what you design, and it will also change how you think it is going to be manufactured, because the as design part and the as manufactured part not always identical.
Okay.
And thinking about the physics of how something's going to work there, very, very important.
Yeah. And is this kind of thing you do only possible now because of the way technology has developed? I mean,
Yes.
you're saying you're running millions of simulations, and you can do it at breakneck speed now. That's only possible because of the power of computing available to people today. That's to do with cloud, I guess, and just what software, what hardware can do.
It's to do with what hardware exists.
Yeah.
So, GPU acceleration is one of the things that makes this possible.
Right.
If you have a trained model, you can run that on a CPU. It doesn't need specialist hardware. It will just run. And most people have, a laptop or a very normal CPU once the model's trained. Very similar to the way that language models work. You are probably running GPT on your phone or something like that. It doesn't need compute power to do predictions.
Yeah.
It did need compute power to get trained in the first place.
Okay.
And that's the same thing for our physics models. So, we don't need the entire internet in the way that GPT needed that to train a really high quality language model. We need a couple of hundred simulations, sometimes even less. But we do need the hardware that started to be really, really powerful, let's call it 10 years ago, and started to be very available, 5 years ago, to train the model in the first place.
Yeah, okay. A lot of talk this week in this show, as ever, at any kind of innovation or tech show, about AI and what that is doing to the operations, to real life. AI is talked about in the consumer sphere because it's having an impact. We can see it actually. It's not real. It's definitely there, but it's kind of a bit of a. It's not. Everyone's not too sure exactly what the impact is going to be. Whereas actually, you can see it happening here. You can see things are people are actually adopting what is I think looks like proper AI, not just pretend AI. I don't know. Maybe you have a different view on that, but
no, I think.
Do you see it really being adopted, and is it making a difference today, or is it still a little bit like this is going to happen in the future?
I think it depends on what you're using it for.
Right.
I think a lot of the language stuff is very, very useful as a co-pilot. No pun intended in an aerospace context.
Yes.
But it's very useful for information retrieval and to help people with that kind of thing. I think in the physics instance, a lot of what people are trying to do is very similar to what they've always wished they could do, but they knew that they were limited. And so AI, I think, in that instance is very adoptable, mostly because you can see when it's wrong. Like the issue with a lot of language models is that they hallucinate, and you have to go and verify the information yourself. If you're looking at a physics prediction, if you're asking what's going to be the pressure on this wing flow, or what's going to be the temperature in this particular instance, you can validate that immediately, and you know if it's giving you something that's incorrect. We also try and help with that. I think there's a lot of reticence in engineers to look at something where it's going to be uncertain without knowing what the uncertainty is. They want to know how wrong it's going to be. And so there's a big focus and push with our customers to tell you what the uncertainty is. The model is telling you it's going to be X plus or minus Y, or with this confidence. And that's the kind of thing that gives engineers in particular the confidence to use AI.
Obviously in aviation, that sort of calculation about risk profiles is so critical, and I guess that acceptable level of risk is lower in aviation, but you'll see how it is in other sectors. Is that the case? Do you find aviation is a more of an exacting sector to work in compared to some of the others that maybe you're aware of?
Maybe exacting isn't the word. I think people are more or less willing to innovate in certain different scenarios, and I wouldn't say it's sectoral. I actually think it's cultural to within the organization. I think there are companies that you think of as being in very, very old-fashioned sort of sectors, but just culturally,
Yeah.
They're really future-looking, and they're interested in trying a lot of things. I think that's true in aviation. I think it's true in automotive. I think it's true in the semiconductor manufacturing space, where we do a lot of work as well.
Right.
And so it all depends on the flavor and the attitude that the company has towards adopting AI and trying new things.
Yeah.
One thing I do see as a pattern across all of them, and we've even had this with customers today, is a lot of people are curious about when regulation is going to change to keep up. So people who work with us will do a lot of virtual engineering, but a lot of the regulations around certification are written for a physical engineering and a physical testing world.
Right.
And they're dying for EASA or whoever the equivalent is in whatever their industry is or their geography to update the regulations and allow for more virtual testing, more simulation of any flavor, more AI, more machine learning, and better ways for them to certify things faster, and also honestly do probably more robust experiments, but just do it from a virtual first perspective rather than a physical first perspective.
Yeah.
Which isn't that the physical tests aren't critical, they absolutely are. It's just, I think there's a lot of people here who are seeing the opportunity if the regulations were changed to reflect what is available in the modern world.
Yeah. It's almost an interesting philosophical question in this. We were discussing it last night at dinner actually, about when you allow the machines to make decisions, which is probably what you're going into with virtual and ML and AI.
Yeah.
When that fails, the human being is going to be almost more angry about that than if you know it's a human failure, because you kind of accept, you bake in human failure.
Yeah.
But if you tell people, actually now the machines have taken over, there's maybe an expectation they'll be 100% right 100% of the time. And so when they're not, this is where it's the philosophy of it. What's the human reaction to that? And this is where a lot of sectors are facing this. I mean, you'll see it in doctors and pharmacy and all that stuff. You know, an AI doctor will make less wrong calls than a human doctor. But when they do make the wrong call, I mean,
exactly.
that, you know, you'll accept the fact that a human made a wrong call. So there may be a philosophical thing here, but it's something that the regulators, the aviation industry itself, will have to start to accept, because there may be pilotless drones going out there very soon, flying people around, urban areas, and it won't be a pilot doing it; it'll be a machine deciding where and when it flies. So
it will, and I think like the human-machine interface. And I don't mean that in the sense of HMI, but sort of the interfacing between those two groups is going to be really important. I think there are some decisions where I really don't want a machine to ever make it. I think like AI in the legal sector is one of these awkward places where actually, a little bit like you were saying about AI doctors, it might be a more standard decision, but I would just be very uncomfortable with the idea of an AI judge making a judgment. Yeah. Having said that, I think there's lots of places where a human in the loop but AI augmented system is going to be best for everyone. I think that's true in the medical sector as well. I think if you look at these places where you've got a scan where a model would say, I think this is an issue, a melanoma or whatever it is, and a doctor will confirm, then everyone gets to do their job in a way that is, safer and faster and probably more pleasant. I think the same thing is true in engineering as well. But I think the big thing that we're seeing is that actually every bit of software that we make is designed to be used by a human. It's not designed to make decisions itself. Yeah. And we had a very interesting conversation on LinkedIn recently, where one of our engineers was talking to another engineer about what does optimization look like, and is optimization used in an engineering context? And they were talking about whether it's relevant at all. And our engineer was saying, well, look, a lot of humans are doing optimization right now. They just don't realize they're doing it. They will look at a result, they'll say, that could be better in this way. I'm going to tweak it and improve it in that direction. And I'm going to see if it's better. And that's human setting out the requirements, and that's humans understanding about how you make something fit those requirements. But if you can have a human do that in a way where a model is giving them the prediction and it takes them, a second to wait for the next answer rather than a couple of hours to wait for the next answer, or you just set requirements and it just optimizes towards it and does a million different possible combinations, and it tells you what the one that is most optimal according to what you've asked for is. I think that's kind of exciting. Yeah.
Just augments what the humans are doing. Final question, because time's running out. Just how you found the show, and just the general, I guess, the attitude, the atmosphere of the show, the feeling you get from aviation. It went through some tough times clearly with COVID, and now needs to look at the future and so on. So does this thing sort of show make you optimistic that we've got a sector here that is driving forward and innovative and looking to the future?
I think so. I mean, I wonder if we can even call ourselves a startup at all, because we're now slightly too big to be in that category. The most interesting thing about this show that I found is the Startups Corner, where there's a bunch of really interesting new companies. They've all got 10 people or fewer, and they're doing some really, really phenomenal things. And I think what that just shows that there is a culture of innovation still happening. And there's a culture of sort of creativity that I'm really glad to see. Not because I wasn't expecting it, but just because actually some of the ideas that are over them in that corner are really cool.
We spoke to some of ourselves, and the way they've got there as well, sort of a bunch of diverse people in many respects, clever, and they've come from other parts of other sectors and gone, you know what, this will work in aviation, and they're not aviation people, but they've gone, aviation is the one they want to do. So,
and it's using tools. What they're realizing is that engineering for so long was rate limited by the tools that they had access to, and a lot of those people, because they came from other industries, are using tools from other industries and methods from other industries, and they're not rate limited by the kinds of tools that you might think of. So I think that's helped them be more creative more quickly as well.
Cool. On that positive note, we'll close that off. So thank you very much for joining us on ABNcast.
Thank you.